Welcome back, Queen, to another episode of Creatress of Freedom. I'm Annie, and I'm your host, and I'm so happy and so excited to be dropping on in with you today. All right, have I got a juicy story for you today? So strap on in, let's get started. I'm Annie, I'm your host. If you are new here, welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm so happy that you are tuning on in. And if you are an OG, hey, I love you and I'm so happy that you're here. So I'm going to start this episode off. Oh, dearie me. I'm going to start this episode off with imagine that you're having a conversation with a guy and he is declaring his undenying love for you. And your response is, well, I guess time will tell. And he responds back and says, time or a plane ticket? And you respond, you are joking. And then he says back, why would I be joking about that? And then you die in fits of laughter because you're like, what is happening right now? So that, my friends, is a true story. So let's reverse it back now that I've got your undivided attention because you're so keen to hear what the fuck is going on. Let's reverse it up a little bit. So I want to go back to my younger days when I was little, when I was like 13, 12, 13. And I was in love with a guy. And he was in the church that I was in. So if you have not listened to my episode about being a Jehovah's Witness as a child, go back and have a listen to that first because that is a really powerful episode where I share with you about my childhood and what it was like growing up in a religious household. Anyway, so this guy was my first love. Was my first love. I was like, I don't know exactly how old I was, but maybe like 12 or 13. And I just thought that this guy was amazing and he was going to be the guy that I was going to marry and he was the guy that I felt actually got me and understood me. And, we shared similar childhoods in growing up in a religious household and, things like that. And so, I really thought that this person was going to be my person. Anyway, as the years went on, so when you're in the religion, you are not allowed to date unless you are of age where you could get married. And so, our parents, well, more so my parents, not so much his mum, but more so my parents were very cautious in allowing me to get too close to any guys to resist the temptation of having sex before marriage, right? Because that's not allowed. You can't have sex before marriage in the religion. And so any time that I was starting to get close or anything like that to any of the guys within the church, I was made to distance myself and wasn't allowed to hang out with them as much and things like that to resist that temptation. So once my parents kind of got wind that, there was strong feelings towards this guy, they kind of made sure that there was no opportunity for me to be put in a situation with him, essentially. Anyway, he ended up moving away and that was all fine. And, I went about my normal life and started my apprenticeship in hairdressing and everything was all good. And then we reconnected, like, I don't know, I would have been 18 by this stage. I was driving. So we reconnected again. He declared his undenying love for me again. And I was not really interested at this stage. I actually had a boyfriend and I just wasn't really interested in him. So, we went separate ways and that was all fine. And then years went by and I ended up with one of my exes that I was with for a very long time, Jace, for like five years. And that didn't work out, and so we separated, sold our house, and then the my 14-year-old love, we're just going to call it my 14-year-old love because I'm going to be mindful of names. So unless you know me, you won't know who I'm talking about. So I'm just going to respect the privacy by not using his name at this present moment. So we're going to call him my 14-year-old love, okay? So my 14-year-old love reconnected back with him, and I had planned to do a trip to Hawaii. It was a solo trip, and I was so excited to just like go and explore after my breakup that I had with Jace. And anyway, so my 14-year-old love, we reconnected and he ended up, so he came and stayed a couple of nights with me. It was the first time that we had sex because we were never allowed to do anything prior to that. Um, and, like I was really hoping that this was going to be like my fairy tale story, right? My fairy tale love. And I had a trip booked to Hawaii. And so he ended up coming with me to Hawaii. And we did this trip, and it was a disaster of a trip. Not a disaster, but it was not the fairy tale ending that I was hoping for. And I really didn't feel anything for him romantically, and there was nothing there. He wasn't in a great place himself at that time, so he wasn't showing up as the best version of himself. I also had just gone through immense heartbreak, so I was really vulnerable and I really needed like a man there to like kind of nurture me and support me, and he really just was not that vibe that I was looking for at that period in time. And so when the trip was over, I said to him, like, I don't feel anything. I'm really sorry. And he still was declaring his undenying love for me. And I said, like, that's it. Like, I'm sorry. Like, there's nothing there. And so we went separate ways again for years and years and years. And then I met Troy, and I was with Troy for a long time, and for like almost 8 years in total. And at some stage through mine and Choi's relationship, so my 14-year-old love, we never really connected much at all. There might have been like maybe like an odd birthday message here and there, but that was pretty much it. There wasn't much connection, there wasn't much communication at all. We respected each other's, were living separate lives and all of that. I didn't even know where he was up to, what he was doing. We weren't, pardon me, pardon me. We weren't friends on Facebook or anything like that. We weren't connected through social media because he said it was too hard for him to see me be in other relationships and things like that. So we weren't connected on socials. And so I didn't really know what he was doing, and he didn't know what I was doing. Anyway, so when I was with Troy, I had this crazy dream one night, and he came into it. So my 14-year-old love came into it. But, the dream was Troy and I were traveling, and we like ran into him and we were talking. And I've obviously shared, about this guy with Troy. So he knew who he was. And uh, anyway, so that was fine. And I woke up the next morning and I remembered the dream, and I was like, oh, that's weird. I have not thought about him. I haven't like dreamt about him for years. And I was like, this is so strange. Anyway, the next night I go to bed and I have another dream about this guy, my 14-year-old love. And this time it was like not good. So the visions that I had coming through were of this guy that was like, I don't know, the house was like kind of like a crack house, and like he was not in a good way, and he got caught up with some like shitty people, and like was not really looking after himself, and was like kind of going downhill rapidly. Anyway, and I woke up from that dream like it was real life, and it's the first time that I had had a dream where I was like, I need to do a follow-up with this, because it felt like it was a message. It really felt like it was a message that I needed to follow and maybe reach out to him. And it had been years since we had contacted each other. And so then I spoke to Troy about the situation. I said that I had this crazy dream, and like I really felt called to reach out to him. And it was very triggering for Troy. He did not like it at all. It obviously brought up his insecurities, and he was convinced that I just wanted to get back with him, and that if I just wanted to get back with him, why didn't I just leave instead of like doing all of this? And I like had to explain to him that I had tried it. I'd been down that path, and like I didn't feel anything for him. I genuinely care for him as a friend, you know, like he was my first love, but like there was nothing romantic on my behalf around it. And I asked Troy to really trust me that was not what was going to happen. And I wouldn't have been sharing it with him if I was trying to do things behind his back. Anyway, Troy was very adamant that he did not want me to make contact with him. And I just, in the bottom of my gut, just knew that I needed to follow up with this. And so I said to Troy that I really respect where he's coming from. And I am really sorry that I'm not giving him what he wants, but I am going to follow up, and I am going to make contact with this guy. Anyway, so even though Troy was like pissed off with the situation, I did it. And I didn't even know if he still had the same contact number. So the first time that I messaged, he did message me back and was like, wow, like long time no hear. Yeah, we can chat. Hope everything's right, blah, blah. Anyway, so the next day we'd arranged to have a phone call. So I called him, and I was like, it had been sharing with him like the situation and the dream that came through. And he was mind blown, because he was like, well, I feel like that's kind of like not to that extreme, but like, yeah, like that's kind of where I'm at the moment. I feel like I'm in a space that I don't really want to be at, and I'm doing some things that I don't really want to be doing, and I'm hanging out with some people I don't really want to be hanging out with. And yeah, he's like, so your dream was like kind of spot on. And yeah, I just said to him, like, I'd been in those dark places. I have been suicidal before, and I would hate for him to think that he was alone and didn't have people that cared for him. Anyway, and so like that was it. In that conversation, he also did once again declare his undenying love for me. And again, I said, like, I don't feel that way for you. I am not romantically attracted or, anything like that. We had our time. We tried when we were in Hawaii, and I didn't feel anything. And he was like, I genuinely am happy for you. And that's all I ever want, is for you to be happy. And, you know, that was kind of it. And that was kind of the end of the conversation. And then we never touched base for, well, years really after that, because and then I left Troy, and then we might have had maybe a message in between. It's usually for birthdays is usually when the message happens. I mean, his birthday is only like 2 weeks after my birthday, so it's literally like within January. And then he also had a brother that passed away. And so I don't know why, but I always have that date in my head for his brother's birthday. And so I would often message for his brother's birthday as well. And I don't know why, but I always did. Anyway, so that was fine. So by this stage, there'd been a couple of messages really in between. So I'd left Troy, finished that relationship, and was on my own, and I was in Queensland, and somehow he had known that I had left Troy and all of that. And, again, still wished me all the best, and like nothing happened. We never reconnected or anything like that. It was just purely friendship. And then about, I don't even know, like 10, 11 months ago, I got a message from him saying, could we chat? He was going through a bit of a hard time with his relationship that he was in, and he just wanted to hear my perspective and just like chat it out. And also he was a stepdad, and so he wanted to hear how did I handle leaving the children behind, because I was obviously a stepmom. And anyway, so we chatted on the phone. We did a video call, and it was the first video call that we had done in years, like probably, I don't even know, like probably since I was a teenager. And so we chatted, and he, was sharing bits and pieces that he was navigating and working through. And I was sharing my experience about how hard it is to leave children behind when you're in a relationship. And it's like, I don't know, there's no words to put into what that feels like. It was harder for me to leave and say goodbye to the kids than it was for me to say goodbye to Troy. Like, those kids touched my heart, and I still miss them every single day. Anyway, we're not going to get into that because I'm going to get emotional about that. They were in my life for a very long time, and they really taught me a lot about myself. So, anyway, let's get back on track. So, anyway, so that was our conversation, and I said to him like how hard it was, and but I knew that this was what I needed to do for me. And anyway, and I also gave him some things to reflect on too, because he was thinking about leaving the relationship. And obviously I have known his childhood. I've known a lot of the things that he has gone through, and I've also done a lot of inner work as well. So I could see what potentially might be happening. And so I actually invited him to look at the role that he was playing in this relationship, and I invited him to see, like, is this like a deep trauma that maybe he gets to work on, and maybe he shouldn't walk away from the relationship just yet, and he can use it as an opportunity to see that relationships are our mirrors, right? The people that come into our life, they come into our life because we are a match for them, and they're in our life to teach us something about ourselves. And so I said to him, like, could you use this opportunity to lean in and see what this is teaching you about yourself right now? And so, like, that was all fine, and it was all done and dusted. And then I don't know how many months went by. So we never connected again after that phone call. And I don't know how many months went by. And then he randomly messaged me and was like, how are you? Hope you're doing well. Hope Greece is treating you well. And I was like, yeah, I'm doing well. Greece is amazing, blah, blah, blah. And he told me that he had left that relationship, and he was having a really hard time, because he was missing the kids. And so it was a couple of messages, but like that was it. There was really nothing else that really eventuated. Again, he declared his undenying love for me. And I said the same thing that I've been saying since I was like, when did I go to Hawaii? Like when I was 22, I went to Hawaii. Uh, that I don't romantically feel anything for him. And, I'm really sorry. Like, I wished that it was this like childhood story, but like, it's not. Like childhood love story, but it's like not. I don't feel that. And he's always very respectful, and he's like, okay. He's like, yeah, I get it. He's like, but one day, there will be one day. And I'm like, okay, whatever. Anyway, so then fast forward now until January 2025. And so he sends me a message for my birthday, and that's it. And then I send him a message for his birthday a couple of weeks later. And this birthday message rolls into this conversation that goes for hours in text messages. And the conversation is, again, him talking about how he still thinks about me, and how he still thinks that, one day we're going to come back together. And I was like, I just don't see how that is possible. And I said to him, I don't even know how you can still think that I'm still the one for you, because the version that you are remembering and holding on to, that girl doesn't exist anymore. Like, I am a completely different woman now. I've gone through some really big shit in my life that has created trauma, that has determined and developed the woman that I am today. That this, 14-year-old girl that he still is in love with, she does not exist. And so I'm saying this to him, and I'm like, I don't know how you can be so sure, because at the end of the day, like, I don't exist. So how do you know that I'm still the one for you? And he's like, I just know. He's like, it's a feeling. I can't explain it. Like, it's just a feeling. And so I'm like, right. Anyway, so then he comes back at me, and he's like, well, if you're saying that I don't know who you are, then how can you sit there and say to me that you also don't feel anything towards me when you don't know who I am right now? Like, what if you did feel something towards me, but you haven't allowed yourself to explore it? And I was like, oh, that's a good point. Yeah, but potentially. Anyway, and so the conversation kind of went on and we were chatting back and forth, and then I said to him that, well, you know what, I guess at the end of the day, if we are meant to be together, then time will tell. And that was when he wrote back and said, time will tell. No, he wrote back, sorry, time or a plane ticket. And I was like, what the fuck? Like a plane ticket? I'm like, you're not joking, right? You're joking right now. And he's like, no, I'm serious. He's like, a plane ticket. Why would I be joking about something like that? And I was like, you're on the other side of the world. And he's like, yeah, I want to take you out for dinner. And I was like, well, that's an expensive dinner. And he's like, well, I think it's a dinner that it's worth taking the risk on, because I think if I was given a second chance, I do believe that things could be different. And I know that I screwed up when we were in Hawaii and I wasn't what you wanted and what you needed. But, we've both gone off and lived our lives and had different experiences. And, I think if given another chance, that maybe, just maybe, you might feel something. And I was like, oh, I don't know. And he's like, well, would you be open to at least seeing how you feel? And I was like, paused. I was like, this guy's serious. He's serious about booking a plane ticket. Like, what the fuck? And I was like, yeah, I guess I'd be open to it. I said, but I also don't want to promise you anything because, like, I might not feel anything different compared to what I did when I was 22. And he's like, okay, that's fine. Like, that's the risk that I'm willing to take. And I was like, that's a big fucking risk. Like, to book a plane ticket and fly from Australia to Greece to take me out for dinner to see how I might feel, like, that's a huge risk. And he responds back to me and he's like, well, I feel like I'm talking to the queen of risks. So out of all people, I thought that you would get it. And I was like, that's a good point. Anyway, and so he was like, if I was to book a plane ticket and come over and see you, would you make time to go out for dinner? And I was like, yeah, like, I guess that's kind of calling his bluff a little bit because I'm like, he's not going to do this. So I was like, yeah, okay, I would. I would make time to go out for dinner with you if you did that. And he's like, okay, cool. And then I went into panic mode and I was like, oh, and also, like, you're gonna have to book your own accommodation. You're not staying in my house. And, like, went into this full, like, walls up defensive mode of I'm in protection mode right now. And he was like, yep, no worries. I'm happy to book my own accommodation, happy to book my own flight. He's like, I just want to know that if I was to come, that you would make some time for me and we could hang out. And I was like, yep, I'm prepared to do that. So before I knew it, a few days went by and he's booked his ticket. And so he's coming now to visit me here in Greece to see how I feel about him. I mean, is this not like the most wildest fucking story you've ever heard? And we joke about it and we're like, this is crazy. Like, this is honestly so crazy. But anyway, I have said to him, like, I don't want to get your hopes up. I don't want you to have any expectations. And he was like, no, I get it. Like, you've been really honest with me from day one about how you feel. And he's like, this is just the risk that I'm willing to take. And I really appreciate how honest you've been about the whole situation. So he's like, regardless, I think we're going to have fun anyway. And even if you don't feel anything romantically towards me, he's like, we can still be friends at the end of the day. And I was like, yeah, this is true. And so it's been really interesting since he's booked his flight, how much or how I'm showing up in this. And so my walls are very much up and I am, like, being defensive and I am almost like pushing him away. And this is really interesting to observe myself in how I am reacting to our conversations and how I am, like, almost trying to put doubt in his mind that this is a bad idea and that he shouldn't be coming. And, it's just been really interesting to watch what is present for me right now. And I think that regardless of what happens at the end of this trip, when he does come, that it's going to be deeply healing for me, because I feel like there is so much healing work that gets to be done around this situation and around this guy. I mean, this was the guy that I first loved. So, they always say that you never forget your first love. And since then, I've been doing some work in therapy around it. And there's been some really beautiful revelations that have also come from that, which is making me realize that regardless of what does go on, I mean, it might be the beautiful love story that we both have imagined, and it might not be. It might be just that we stay really good friends. I don't know, but it's something we're both willing to explore and see. And I know that at the end of the day, that everything happens for us, and everything is a lesson, and everything is deep healing. And I truly do believe that, based on where I'm at right now and the therapy work that I'm doing, that this is going to be a really deeply healing experience for me in this situation, and also potentially for him too, because I'm pretty sure that I've created some trauma for him as well throughout the years. And so here we are now, uh, waiting, patiently playing the waiting game for him to come. So he's booking his own accommodation, his flight is booked, and I guess I'm going out for dinner with a guy that's flying across the world to take me out for dinner. So it's been really interesting, because it is definitely triggering a lot in me. And the biggest thing that I have been able to pinpoint, because I have obviously been trying to sit with a lot of my emotions and my feelings around it, but one of the biggest things that is coming up in why I'm so scared, and I don't think that this would be necessarily whether it's with him or whether it's with another guy, but the biggest thing that I'm actually scared about is that I lose myself in this process, that I am so happy and content on my own right now. Like, I genuinely am loving my single life. I have nobody to answer to. I can come and go and do as I please, and I can be whoever I want to be, and I don't have to answer to anyone. I can go to bed whatever time I want. I can leave my dirty clothes on the floor. I can eat what I want. And it's just easy, right? It's so easy. And I have developed so much trust and love for myself that I don't need a man in my life. A past version of Annie needed a man in her life, but I've done so much deep inner work that I now realize that my partner is here to contribute and add value to my life, not to take away, or because I need them to fulfill some kind of need within me. I know that all of my needs have to be met from within me. They can never be met from outside me. And so the biggest fear that I have, and I was sharing this with him when he asked me how I felt about him booking a flight, and I said that I was scared. I told him that I was scared about it, and he said, "What are you scared about?" And first up, I said, "I'm scared that I'm going to let you down." And he challenges me a lot in my thoughts and in the things that I say, which I really like, because I feel like he's really present with me and he's really listening to what I'm saying. And then he said to me, "So what are you actually scared of? Like, what are you really scared of?" And then I said, "Well, I'm scared that, number one, I mean, there's obviously hope that I do feel something, because you are my first love. So that would be like such a beautiful love story to be able to tell. I mean, every girl wants that love story, right?" So I said to him, "I'm scared that I'm going to feel something for you, and I'm not ready for a relationship." Well, I didn't think I was ready for it. I'm very happy being on my own. And so I said, that scares me, because I'm not sure how to navigate what that might look like. The other thing that scares me is that, naturally I hope that I feel something, but what if I don't? And then I disappoint you. And then I also feel disappointed in myself, because I have an expectation of maybe I might feel something. And then thirdly, the other thing that scares me is that what does that even look like moving forward? And if that was the case, like, I mean, I live in Greece, he lives in Australia, like, who knows what that looks like? And he said to me, like, I appreciate you sharing that and being honest with me. And he's like, yeah, I think that they're all valid. And after everything that you've also been through as well, like it makes sense as to why you feel that way. Which is also really nice and validating that, you can have a conversation with a guy that can also validate your feelings and is actually genuinely listening and not just trying to figure out how he can get in your pants and, win you over. So it's been really nice, and it's already been deeply healing because of the inner work that I'm witnessing myself going through right now with the conversations that we are having. We're not talking, every day, but there's messages back and forth and a couple of phone calls here and there. But overall, it's just been really interesting to witness what's coming up for me around this situation and how I'm showing up, and the things that I'm saying back to him where he is very much pulling up on me trying to push him away, and he just calls it out, and he will say to me, are you saying this because you're trying to scare me away? Is that what's happening right now? And I'm like, oh, this guy, like, he gets it. He knows it, like an other guy would be just completely oblivious to that. So he's definitely challenging me, and I admire that. And I admire the courage to, like, book a fucking plane ticket to come and see me, to take me out for dinner. Like that's the kind of masculine man every woman wants. Like, every woman wants a man that says, I'm doing this, and he follows through, and he speaks his truth, and he takes action on what he says he's going to do. So that's also very flattering that that is happening, for me as well. So I guess time will tell, but I wanted to give you an update on the situation. And yeah, I guess he's here in March. So depending on when you're listening to this episode will depend on what this looks like and how this unfolds. But I am really excited to catch up with an old friend. I'm excited to have a friend come to the island because I have been feeling lonely and like I needed some friends. So it's nice that this is just divine timing and it's all happening. And I honestly can't believe how fast it's all going on and all happening, because yeah, literally from the moment that I messaged him on his birthday, within a couple of days he had a plane ticket booked to come and visit me. So yeah, we will watch this space and see how it goes. I'm really curious to see, how it all pans out. And I feel like we're both really mature in the sense of, like, we don't know what's going to happen, but regardless, we're here to have fun. And yeah, we will wait and see. But yeah, it's really interesting to watch myself navigate and push him away. And, one of the things that has come up was about, he was asking me about my business, and I was sharing with him different pieces of the business, and he was like, oh, it's amazing, like it's so great what you've done for yourself, and where you're at. And I was like, oh, have you ever dated a businesswoman before? And he's like, no, I haven't. And I was like, oh, it can sometimes be very we're a different breed, because it can be triggering sometimes for different men. And he was like, oh, I could see how that would be, but I think that they're really beautiful qualities to have in a partner. And then I like went on this like tangent, and I was like, yeah, well, that's what my ex thought as well. But, it triggered everything in him. And, I think yeah, I was like, yeah, and it triggered everything in him. And he was like, oh, because you were more successful. And I said, I don't think that it was more that I was more successful or that I was making more money than him. I think what it was is just the dynamics between the feminine and the masculine. I didn't need him as such. And so that can really bruise the masculine's ego if they aren't self-aware, or they're not doing the inner work, which at that stage, neither my ex or I were doing the deep inner work. And so we didn't have the awareness around the dynamics and how our relationship was shifting based on that. And so that actually became a really big trigger for him, as well, because he didn't feel like, he could naturally provide and care and look after me. And, almost like our roles kind of changed in the energy sense, where I kind of stepped more into my masculine, and I think he stepped more into his feminine. And so I'm like sharing all of this with this guy, and he's like, are you like trying to scare me away? And I was like, well, I'm not trying to scare you away. I just want you to know what you're getting yourself into. That's all. And he was like, okay, well, I know what I'm getting myself into. And anyway, I was sharing with my girlfriend about how I was showing up. And she's like, he's a grown ass man. Like, let him make his own choices. If he wants to book a flight and come and see you, like, let him. Like, you're emasculating him by telling him not to come. Like, you said you wanted a masculine man. So, like, the universe is like literally showing you right now. And I was like, oh my gosh, yes, this is so true. Like, I needed that mirrored back to me. So yeah, it's been really interesting to watch how I'm showing up and what is triggering within me. And like I said, I really do believe that this experience is going to be deeply healing for both of us, regardless of what does happen at the end of the day. So stay tuned. But that's the juice on my love life right now. It's been a hot minute since there's been anything like that that has gone on because I've just been living in my own little bubble. But yeah, if you are here for this ride, come and let me know. Let me know what your thoughts are. I actually shared it with my private community, with my clients the other week, and they're so excited. They're like, they're on the edge of their seat. They're like, this is amazing. So time will tell. Let's wait and see what unfolds from this, whether it is just a beautiful, deep healing experience or maybe it leads into something else. But either way, I'm trusting in the process and I'm trusting and surrendering that everything is happening for me for a reason. And I'm here for it. And it's fun and it's exciting. And, I want to have heaps of joy in my life. So there we go. That's the update, guys. I hope that you have enjoyed listening to my little banter of what's going on in my life personally right now. If you have any reflections or anything like that, come and let me know. I would love to hear. Have a beautiful day wherever you are in the world, and I'll talk to you real soon. Bye for now.